Hi, I'm Sara and I'm from Crafter's Companion, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful card here, which is using a lot of the snowflake dies, embossing folders that we've got in our Festive Wonder collection in the Sara Signature range. Now I'm going to show you a lot of different techniques, including how we incorporate the embossing folders with our dies, and whenever you do that you need to make sure that you do all of your die cutting first. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the cut and emboss machine. So I've got my sandwich platform ready with the D plate, the B and the magnetic, and then I'm going to work between the two A plates. Now I've got the piece of cardstock that we're going to work with, and we're going to die cut the snowflakes into it. And then this is what we're going to take through and emboss as well. So you just position your snowflakes in place. At the same time while I'm die cutting, I can also die cut my Merry Christmas. Now, I'm using some black card for that, and because we're going to stick it flat, I've actually already applied some Stick It to the back. So Stick It's a fantastic product which you can use when you do want to turn your cardstock essentially into a piece of self-adhesive cardstock. So it means that once we've popped it through our machine, so I'll just turn the machine on and offer these in. Once we've actually cut that design out, what we're going to end up with is a lovely design, but there's already got an adhesive backing on, so we just peel the backing off and it's ready to stick on the card. Now all of these dies are cut and embossed, so what I'm doing is the first pass through the machine, I'm actually doing just the cutting. So I can lift this out now, and with the Merry Christmas we only do need to cut the die. So I can take Merry Christmas out, and then I'm going to take out these 3 snowflake dies that we've die cut. So one, I'm just being really careful because you can see how detailed those snowflakes are. Now I'm going to lie these back in the machine, take out the magnetic sheet and add in the embossing sheet, and I'm going to send these through another time to do an emboss with them. Now, while they're on embossing, I've got my base card now, and we're now going to emboss that with an embossing folder. So I've got my apertures in, I can position this in the embossing folder, and we're going to get that lovely snowflake design all over the surface that we're working with there, okay? So I've got that ready in place. I can take out the dies. So here are my 3 snowflake dies. And I'll show you the embossed detail on them in just a minute. But while we're looking at those, I can be sending through the piece that we've got ready to emboss. So that is now going through the machine. Now, I said about these being embossed detail. Everywhere where you've got a hole on here is actually ready to emboss with. And to just show it off even more, I'm going to use the Tim Holtz Distress ink, and I'm going to ink through each of these. So I'm just using a little bit. You can either use a piece of a non-stick craft mat, or in this case I'm just actually using a non-stick baking sheet, and by inking through there, the non-stick baking sheet's just protecting my work surface. But by inking through these dies, what we end up with, everywhere where we've got a 3-dimensional emboss, we're now also going to have a little bit of colour on them. So if I release one of these out, you'll be able to see there, not only is it dimensional, but it's dimensional with colour on too. So I've got my 3 snowflakes ready to go. And they are really delicate, so it is just worth taking your time with these. And this one, you'll really see that embossed detail coming to life. There we go. Beautiful snowflakes. And while we've got this mat out, I'm going to show you now the piece that we've just embossed. So what we've got is an embossed panel that has got the 3 apertures of the snowflakes. Now, to add a little bit of that colour around the side to give a bit of depth, what I'm doing is the same again. I'm adding a little bit of my distress ink onto the cut and dry foam, but then taking most of it off on the surface, and then just ever so slightly starting to add a little bit around the outside. And you notice just working in circular motions, and what it does is it picks up on the embossed detail really, really well. So it just highlights that embossing beautifully well. And once you've got a bit on, you can always go around a bit more and go further into the centre part of your card. And it's great because it's almost like an airbrush effect, really. You get that colour just around the outside, bleeding to nothing. I love the effect that you get with the distress inks and distressing like that. So that's our base panel design, and what I'm going to do is just mat it onto a piece of black card, just flat matting, and it just gives a little bit of background colour behind where we have these apertures. And where you do have your apertures, make sure you've got plenty of tape on. There we go. Now, to be a little bit different, what I've then done is I've taken a piece of the background cardstock that we've got from the 12x12 paper pad in the collection, and on one of these corners, because it's running diagonally, I've just cut through the corner so that this can sit underneath like that. And I just felt like it was a little bit different. And what I will do, now I'm happy with that, I'll put my tape pen just around the outsides there. So that's going down there, so I'll put a little bit in the corner too. And be very careful because they are super tacky, these tape pens, so you don't want to be putting any pressure on till you know this is exactly where you want it to appear. There we go. And then again, I'm going to mount all of that onto another piece of black cardstock. And matting and layering just really helps to draw the eye into the centerpiece of your card. There we go. And then of course all of that, nice and strong now, will mount onto the front of a regular A5 card. So this is just A4 scored and folded in half to create the base card. There we go. Now, remember we did the die cutting of the Merry Christmas? What I'm going to do now is just release it out. Oh, that's perfect actually. It's taken the stick-it off there as well. So I'm just, and you just find it's a little bit more fiddly when you've got stick-it on, but it's definitely worth the extra work because now that is already sticky, ready to go onto the front of my card. So just make sure you don't end up with any of these little background pieces sticking where you don't want them to. So there's my Merry Christmas, and you can see just how beautifully that is die cut, and that is going to stick over the front of the whole surface of the card. So stick it is just turn this whole thing into a sticker, and that will stick down perfectly well. Then what I'm going to do is in the centerpiece of all of my snowflakes, I'm going to add a crystal gem. So this is my precision gem applicator, the Easy Crystal, and it just gives me a gem right in the center of each one. And while I've got this out, I'm going to put one into the four corners of the card as well. And you just see how easy it is to add gems exactly where you need them. And then with a tiny little bit of 3D glue gel, I'm going to put the snowflakes back where they came from, but I'm going to raise them up and also just slightly offset them a little bit. And this is where it really starts to look fantastic. So just raising up the edges and offsetting them somewhat. And you don't want them to appear exactly in the same hole, so do make sure you just slightly adjust them. And there we have it. A stunning, very vibrant, bright red Christmas snowflake card.